Tony Bushby says that the church fathers knew all about this. According to Bishop Epiphanius, the Christ is the spiritual self within each person. Clement of Alexandria, right? Great church patriarch, he says the greatest of all lessons is to know yourself. For when a man knows himself, he knows God. So at one point, even this self-knowledge was featured in religion in a very strong way. In Hebrews we read, without father, without mother, without human descent. His life has neither beginning nor end, but as the Son of God, he abides as a holy priest continually. So the one under God is without any of these connections to other human beings. He stands alone. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, many stand outside the door, but it is only the solitaries who will enter into the bridal chamber. Talking about the chemical wedding that comes after the divorce from all the other falsity of the world. In 1 John we read, you have been anointed by the Holy One and have knowledge of all things. The anointing which you received from him abides in you, and you have no need that anyone should teach you, as his chrism teaches you about everything, and is true and is no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him, the higher self. And once you have that, you need no other authority. As I said, this was in the ancient legends of the earliest peoples on the earth. In the very Song of Odin, it says, I know that I hung on the windy tree for 9 whole nights. Right? 9 is the cycle of initiation, see? Wounded with a spear dedicated to Odin, myself to myself. Nobody stuck him there. Nobody nailed him on there. To go and seek the mystery of the runes was a willing participation in suffering, a willing entering into a menta, right? He hung upside down. And the windy or the winding tree is the Kabbalistic tree on which the secrets of the runes exist, which is nothing more than the self. But the key there is that this was an oblation not to God or not to some guru, but to oneself, not to a cause, not an ideal. Crazy Horse, the shaman of the Lakota people, says that I salute the light within your eyes where the whole universe dwells. For when you are at the center within yourself, and I within mine, we shall be as one. I salute the light within your eyes where the whole universe dwells. For when you are at the center within yourself, and I within mine, we shall be as one. So don't you see then that this is obvious now what the real holy work is? The holy work is to find out, is it not, what stops you from doing that? Every single thing that prevents you from that level of awareness, from being engaged in the project of your life, must be scrutinized, must be critiqued and understood. You have to understand the anatomy. Forget about finding out what selfhood is. Find out what holds you back from that process. Everything. That's the job. It's not easy. As Friedrich Nietzsche said, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will often be lonely and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. If you don't own yourself, right? If you don't move from those white squares of knowledge, if you don't move on to the white squares of knowledge, somebody else will. That's the dynamic. It's nothing more complicated than that. If you don't own yourself, somebody else will patent you. They're telling you they're doing it, by the way. They're telling you that's the gig. It makes sense, doesn't it, of all this transhumanism we see. They're owning you. The Russell Trust owns you, the Queen of England, the Pope. If you're not selling yourself elsewhere, they'll own you anyway. They've got rights. In individuals, insanity, it's rare. But in parties, groups, and epochs, it is the rule. In individuals, insanity, it's rare. But in parties, groups, and epochs, it is the rule. Also to words again. In the Vedic tradition in Sanskrit, the word Maya has often been a word synonymous with illusion or the fall. I mean, this makes a lot of hay in various religions of the East. They're always telling you about escaping Maya and don't be confused by Maya. And even instilling the idea that the physical world, this concrete world, is the Maya, is the illusion. And that is absolutely not what the original word meant. And this is addressed by Alvin Boyd Kuhn, who says, no, the real Maya or illusion is not the natural forms, but it is the mind's propensity to conceive or project forms created by its own inventiveness, but which do not agree with the truth extant or potential in nature. In other words, what he's saying is that your thoughts about nature is the Maya. The projection that you put upon nature, that it is lower, right? Ontologically lower, there's a higher and the lower, that whole hierarchical paradigm, that is the true Maya. It's your own thought about reality. It's your idea about what is, not what is itself. This is another important piece to grasp in the journey. Because it pertains even to the idea we have of ourselves. Again, the quantum scientist said it. The great scientist Werner Heisenberg put it this way: what we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of understanding. So much so they discovered that even the reality you look at is changed in its complexion by your act of observation. I mean, what could be more magical than that? What could tell you the primacy of consciousness more than that? There's no way out of arguing about that. Nietzsche put it this way: why does man not see things as they are? Because he himself is standing in the way. Our thoughts, our prejudices, stop us from seeing reality as it really is. The great teacher Osho had an amazing simile to account for why we're in the state we're in. It connects with what Heidegger was talking about. Heidegger says that reason, right, logic, can't understand being, because just as your breath must exist before you can live, right, move, walk, function, you must breathe, so does existence, beingness, precede thought and reason. Reason cannot understand the mysteries of existence. You need more than reason. Reason is instrumental to it, but it can't be on its own. It can become waylaid too easily. Osho says, his metaphor of this is saying, how can you teach a blind man the mystery of light? If a blind man has never seen the sun, or know what light is, even though you can describe it perfectly to him in a million ways, is that the same as the experience of actually experiencing light? Of course it is not. Then we come to another key piece in this journey. What, I kind of hinted at it earlier, what happens if we have to re-examine all that we've been told about the mind, consciousness, and those divisions that exist? Particularly the one we looked at earlier, that is it true that the ego's defenses exist because it's threatened truly by the id, the ego, the unconscious, given that the unconscious is, after all, part of yourself? What happens if they're wrong there? What happens if, no, that unconscious energy rather wants to embrace, right, the ego, not destroy it? Wow, that's really important. According to the poets, that's what they believe. William Blake, for instance, who referred to the unconscious more as imagination, the imagination is one of the terms he used for it, basically believes that there is nothing negative about the unconscious at all, and that it's only the ego's perceptions of it, right, that make it that way.